Okay, this is part 2, old-timey archaeological photographs, because I love them. I realized it was getting kind of long, so I wanted to make a part 2 and kind of split it into 2. And so I want to just pick up where we left off, and let's go. Okay, yeah, an old door. I think this is in Africa for sure, definitely based on the way the dress of that guy, Eastern, maybe Africa, somewhere pretty forested, but what a beautiful shot, the way that he's framed in that doorway. Oh, the aesthetic of these things. Like I tell you, if I could just fill my house with this stuff. Okay, so Newgrange. I've been to Newgrange. I've actually been behind that rock right there. And that gate is usually closed, but this is one of the coolest sites on the planet for me. Bruna Boyne. The Newgrange is what they call it, and the story behind its discovery and the ancient origin of this thing. Like, we're talking pre-Celtic people. This thing is as old or older than Stonehenge. I can't remember exactly. I think it's older. But those beautiful spirals, seeing that in person and seeing those sorts of things all around the world, those spirals, those Celtic spirals, one of my favorite. I find myself doodling those and just always have my whole life, kind of just intuitively have doodled those things. But that rock is beautiful. And I love the little girl, to give it context. Like, this is definitely 100 years ago or more that they took this picture. And oh, beautiful. Okay, yeah, King Tut. This is King Tut. What's really, really significant about King Tut is, the grave robbers found most of the stuff in Egypt before archaeology was even invented, before we could get to it and do the science. And this was in, the 1920s, they discovered King Tut's tomb, and they're opening the sarcophagus, and this is like such a cool shot to me, the old-timey tools, and, the guy holding the brush there to help out, and that old-timey archaeologist, white guy, just sitting there, doing his thing on a modern chair for the age. I love how this shot is composed. I'm so glad somebody snapped this picture. Yep, and then this next shot is my favorite old archaeology picture of all time. This is King Tut's tomb. When they found it, it was still sealed. This rope and I think clay stamped seal is how it was left by the Egyptians. They left it like this, and it lasted long enough to be photographed. It's the coolest thing. This is the coolest picture. I think one of my top 5 coolest pictures on the planet. Is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I could look at this all day. I could spend a 20-minute episode just looking at this thing and looking at the rope and the knot and the freaking stamp and the hieroglyphics and everything. Oh, and the fact that it's just photographed back in the day. Oh, this makes me wildly crazy looking at this thing. And then, yeah, just beautiful photography. This actually, you can tell this. I thought this was a modern picture at first, but you can tell just from a little bit of the artifacts and the way the graininess is in some parts of it. I think this is old, but I can't say for sure. But how beautiful that artifact. I love things like that. Okay. Yeah, here we have some Greco-Roman stuff, maybe some older. I don't know for sure. Man, I also want to say it's kind of Iberian. This guy's giving me an Iberian feel. Some of the statues that I've seen, but I don't know where this is. I'm sure I'll put it up on screen, like I said. But a little bit of the stuff I'm seeing here, definitely old world, definitely around the Mediterranean. But that's beautiful. Just like, oh, these are the statue we found. Let's line them up there. We have power lines up, so we know that this is sometime in the 1900s. But what a beautiful shot. Okay, look at these old-timey guys. I don't know what that guy has on his head, but look at all these artifacts that they found that they have laid down. This is in Africa somewhere for sure. Looking at those artifacts, they look like maybe even some sort of shield, but wow. Yeah, the fetishes in the back too behind them are beautiful, and the corrugated tin compound that they made, or whatever it is, the structure behind them. And look at them. They're so old-timey. They're just sitting there in their old-timey clothes, and they're like, look at all these artifacts we found. And he's sitting on one of the artifacts himself. And so, in the 1800s, they probably didn't do archaeology as well as they did now, but I'm glad that they had the idea even of archaeology to preserve some of the stuff that we have nowadays, because it was a mad dash at the beginning of this century, or the beginning of the 20th century for sure. Okay, yeah, grave robbers. That's what we're looking at here. We're looking at the work of grave robbers who just took everything valuable from this grave and threw everything around. And the thing is, grave robbing is not new. It's something that has been happening for thousands of years. And most of the tombs in Egypt have been robbed thousands and thousands of years ago, or hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So there was no chance to do the archaeological work, except for in the case of ones like King Tut. But that's beautiful. Oh, yep, opening King Tut's tomb right there. So that's opening it. When they first looked inside, a monumental discovery, everything intact, so beautiful. And yeah, that looks like that's the last one that I had on this thing. I might do a part 2 of this, but man, I just go crazy for these types of pictures. Yeah, so I realize it's getting kind of long, and I'll probably put this in 2 parts, but I just want to say, like, I love this stuff. I think it's fascinating and amazing, and it's just something that I like. I just like this. I wanted to share it with you. I'm Levi, and this is Outlandish.